Students and parents, welcome to our orientation for athletics. This is an OHSAA required meeting that we are having, and we're going to do it online on final forms so that everyone can view it and sign off that they've seen everything that's been presented. First of all, I'm Austin Rhodes. I'm the athletic director at Springboro High School. A couple of my staff members are Assistant Athletic Director Jen Runchie and our new athletic coordinator Kyle Longworth, and their emails are shown on the slide. Mrs. Runchie works a lot with the junior high, so if you have a junior high student, you may need to contact Mrs. Runchie at some time. Some other introductions that I'd like to do is our athletic trainers. We have a great partnership with Premier Health and Miami Valley Hospital, and we've had some great athletic trainers that work with our student athletes. Patrick Snyder is one of our athletic trainers, and the other athletic trainer is Emily Martz. Emily is new to Springboro this fall, and Patrick has been here since the middle of last year. They do a great job working with our athletes. They are going to be sending out each season some of their most important things as far as bullet points. But one thing that I would say is if you ever have an injured athlete, please see our athletic trainers before going to a doctor. A lot of times they can help us rehab and do our physical therapy in-house and get your student athlete healthy and back on the field or the court anytime as soon as possible. The next thing that I'd like to say is that we have a couple of things that you can stay informed. First of all, our athletic website is boropanthers.com. We'll have schedules and rosters and important events on our athletic website. There's many things that you can find just by browsing around our athletic website. The other thing that we try to do is keep everybody informed on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @Boro_Panthers. This is important. We like to promote our student athletes and make sure that everyone knows the great things that our teams are doing. Also, with any type of weather delays, a lot of times we'll update Twitter with an alert so that everyone can stay informed. So make sure that you follow us on Twitter. Also on our athletic website, you can see information for athletic passes. If you plan on attending a lot of Springboro Panther events, it might be beneficial to buy an athletic pass. Athletic passes for adults are $75 and for students are $50. You'll find information on the athletic website on how to purchase those through our ticket tracker program. You can then come in and get your pass, or we can mail you your pass based on your preference. Passes are good for all Springboro High School and Springboro Junior High athletic events. The only thing that you cannot use your pass for is when we get to the OHSAA tournament. The next thing I'd like to talk about is our Springboro Athletic Boosters. We have a great athletic booster program that supports all of our student athletes and teams. The president of the Athletic Boosters is John Lamb. You can find out more information about membership at springboroathleticboosters.org. Some of the fundraisers that the Athletic Boosters take part in, they run the concession stands at Careflight Field. So any event that happens at Careflight Field, our athletic boosters are stocking and helping run those, and our athletic volunteers will work at those events. You will receive a concession stand working schedule from your coach sometime during the fall if you're a fall sports athlete. If you have any questions about the athletic boosters, please visit their website, and we really would love to have more membership. So if you're interested in helping out, whether that be with volunteering or financially, please visit the Athletic Boosters website or email Mr. John Lamb. One important part of our athletic department is final forms. Right now, if you're viewing this video, you've already visited final forms. There's many forms that have to be signed before your student athlete is able to play. So make sure that when you go through all of those forms, you fill them out completely. If you see the form turn green, then that means that it's been completed. If it is red, it needs to be completed. Sometimes you may see that something is yellow. That's giving you an alert that it's only partially completed. For example, when parents sign forms on final forms, they have to sign every form first, then it will send an email to the student for the student to sign all of the forms. If only the parent is signed, it'll be marked yellow. So make sure that the student then signs the forms to mark them green. With our student forms, whatever email address that you put into the system for your student, that's the email that it's going to send those forms to and those alerts to sign the forms. So make sure that the email address is accurate for your student. Another part of the paperwork process is everyone has to have a valid physical on the OHSAA physical form. Those physicals are good for 365 days. We are not able to make exceptions due to insurance purposes, so try to make sure that you are out ahead of those physical reminders and making sure you get that taken care of. One of the things I always like to tell parents is if you can get on a schedule where you're always getting your child's physical in the summertime, then it never expires during a sports season. So try to get those done during July if possible. Unfortunately, we cannot let any student athlete participate in practice, tryouts, or competition without a physical on file. At Springboro, we have a pay to participate fee. For the junior high, that fee is $160. At the high school, it's $260 with a family cap of $1,040. There's a couple of ways that you can pay your pay to participate fee. You can pay through e-funds, just as you pay school fees, or you can pay by check to the athletic department. Payment plans are available if you contact the athletic department. The due date for the pay to participate is always on the 15th of that first month of the season. For example, in the fall, that's August 15th, the winter, November 15th, and in the spring, March 15th. So always remember the 15th of that first month of the season, pay to participate is due. If you have not been able to pay to participate by that date or have not set up a payment plan, then the student must sit out of practices and games until that's taken care of. Those pay to participate fees help manage the athletic department funds, and they're required and necessary to run the athletic department. We have an athletic student handbook. You'll see this as you go through final forms and sign all of your forms. I would highly encourage you to read through the student handbook with your child so that you can make sure that you're aware of everything that is rules and expectations for the athletic department. A lot of those things are covered in this presentation, but make sure that you go over it and have that paper copy. One of the items in the athletic handbook is our drug and alcohol policy. I'd like to point this out to make sure that students are aware. The length of the code is 365 days, so there is no off season with our drug and alcohol policy. The consequences for that policy, if you are in violation of the policy, 20% of the season for a first offense, 50% of the season for a second offense, a full season for a third offense, and a career ban for a fourth offense. Each time that there is an offense, that student would need to meet with the athletic director. It is the responsibility of the student to make sure that meeting happens and they follow through with everything necessary. Everything that is outlined in that athletic handbook, so make sure that you go over that with your student athlete. One clause that we have kept in the policy is the denial of involvement clause. If any athlete denies their involvement in a tobacco, alcohol, or substance-related situation and is later found to have been involved by the athletic director, their consequences will be doubled. So make sure that if anything were to happen, and I meet with the student athlete, that the student athlete is honest and forthright about that information. In addition to the student handbook, coaches may have a separate set of rules that are pertinent to just their team. Coaches are permitted to establish these team rules, and they are reviewed and approved by the school administration. These rules work in conjunction with the code of conduct in the athletic handbook. Another policy that students and parents should understand is our attendance policy. As a general rule, a student must be present for the entire school day in order to participate in games or practices. This includes when you are late to school. A few exceptions can be made by the administration. A student may miss part of the day and still participate if the absence is approved by the building principal. So any questions about attendance really need to go through the principal and assistant principals. But as a general rule, to play sports, you need to be in school. So make sure that you are in school for at least half of the day in order to participate for games or practices. The next huge part of this presentation is the athletic eligibility. The OHSAA requires that each student must pass 5 core classes in the preceding grading period. In high school, physical education does not count as a core class. However, in junior high, physical education does count as a core class, so that needs to be understood a little bit. So in high school, you need to be passing 5 one-credit classes in the preceding grading period. If a student does not pass 5 classes, then they are ineligible for the entire next quarter. There's no way to get out of that. That is an OHSAA rule. So 5 classes. My recommendation to parents and students is if you're someone that thinks that they might struggle in a class, I would take an extra class. So try to put 6 classes or more on your schedule just to give you the buffer. If you're only in 5 classes, if you fail a class, you're going to be ineligible for the next quarter. Also make sure that you're signed up for at least 5 classes. This has really been something that we've had to look at with CCP students and making sure that you have enough credits to qualify into the next semester. We also must have an average that is above 67% in our classes. That is also part of that rule in order to make sure that you're quarterly eligible. 4th quarter grades count to establish eligibility for the fall. So if you're ineligible based on your spring grades, that carries over to the fall. If a student is ineligible based on the previous quarter, they are not allowed to play or scrimmage for the entire next season. Also, one thing to understand is all 7th graders come in with a clean slate. So if you're in 7th grade, during the fall, you are automatically eligible. However, if you do not pass 5 classes during the fall quarter, during the first quarter, you would be ineligible for the second quarter. So that would be the first time with our 7th graders that you're having to face the eligibility. Weekly eligibility is also something that we need to take into account. So weekly eligibility is strictly a Springboro Board of Education approved policy. So if an athlete receives 2 grades below a 67% in a week, then they are ineligible for the next week. So what happens is the athletic department sends out email reminder to our staff members, our teachers. They input grades. If they mark that a student current grade is below 67%, it goes on the report. If a student has 2 grades that are below 67, then they would be ineligible for the next week. Weekly eligibility runs Monday to Sunday. That means if an athlete becomes ineligible on the Friday report, when weekly grades are submitted, they can play in the games that are on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday that week, but they will begin their ineligibility week on Monday, and that would again run through Sunday. The next item is non-school teams. You will be ineligible if you are a member of a school team competing on a non-school team in the same sport during your school team season. The example might be if you're participating with your club soccer team during your school season, that is not allowed by the OHSAA. Same thing with baseball, basketball, those sports sometimes have those other teams. You cannot do anything with those teams during your school season or you will be ineligible. There are also restrictions for instruction that you can receive from school coaches outside of your season in an OHSAA team sport. Baseball, basketball, field hockey, football, ice hockey, lacrosse, soccer, softball, and volleyball. And some OHSAA individual sports such as cross country, track and field, and wrestling. On the other hand, there are no restrictions for instruction you can receive from school coaches outside of your season in many other OHSAA individual sports such as bowling, golf, gymnastics, swimming and diving, and tennis. If you have any questions on that non-school team issue, visit ohsaa.org or you can email someone in the athletic department for clarification. One thing that we have to deal with a lot in our athletic department is transfer students. If you are a transfer, meaning that you did not go to Springboro or compete in a sport last year, but you were at a different school, and now you've come to Springboro, you need to make sure that you meet with your coach and or athletic director to make sure that we have all of the proper paperwork filled out required by the OHSAA. For example, all transfers that have moved into Springboro need to complete the bona fide change of residence form that can be found on ohsaa.org. Once you complete that form, you need to make an appointment with the athletic director, myself, and we need to sit down and go through that form and make sure that we have everything that we need. If you have any questions, you can just contact myself, Austin Rhodes, at aroads@springboro.org, and make sure that we sit down and get that taken care of. This does not include 7th or 8th graders. This is only 9th grade through 12th. And if you are an incoming 9th grader, it does not count you as well. Everyone starts with a clean slate of eligibility in 9th grade. But let's say that you move in during your 9th grade year, then you would have to sit down and fill out the transfer paperwork. Again, any questions, direct them to the athletics department. As of May 2018, there is a new transfer rule. The transfer rule says that if you do not meet any of the OHSAA exceptions, that you will be eligible for the first half of the season, but you will be ineligible for the second half plus the postseason. So we want to make sure that if you're a transfer that we sit down and see if you do meet any of those exceptions and that your eligibility will be cleared by the OHSAA. Our next policy is our transportation policy. Springboro Community Schools provides transportation to away school-sponsored athletic contests. Athletes are expected to ride the bus to and from contests. Coaches may institute specific rules regarding dismissal to parents for specific events and in special circumstances. All transportation regulations and policies should be followed at all times. There is one exception that you can find on our athletic website, that if there is an extenuating circumstance, that you can fill out the alternate transportation form that needs to be signed by the parent and the coach. One stipulation with that is that the student always is riding with their own parent. They cannot drive to our athletic contest on their own. They cannot ride with a friend. It has to be with their parent. Again, that can be found at the athletic website. Our next item that we need to talk about today is playing time. Equal playing time is not guaranteed and should not be expected. Once we've moved into school sports, it's a little bit different than our community leagues that guarantee playing time. Playing time, again, is not guaranteed. It may not be equal, and it should not be expected to be that way. We do ask that if there are any questions or concerns for our coaches, that our parents try to adopt the 24-hour rule. The 24-hour rule says that you do not approach a coach before, during, or immediately after a game, but instead try to give it 24 hours. A lot of times if you have a question, it might be better to go home, sleep on it, compose an email in the morning and ask for a meeting that way. Usually right after games, coaches, parents, students, there's a lot of emotion. We put a lot into getting prepared, and that's not the best time to have the conversation, especially something about playing time or something that happened in the game. So please try to abide by that 24-hour rule. And the next thing that I'd like to talk about is our chain of command. It's important that parents follow the chain of command in reaching out to the athletic department or one of our coaches. First of all, I always try to encourage students to reach out to the coach first. I think it's a great learning experience that all of us have had to go through, whether it be through sports or a job, to ask someone, how can we improve and what do we need to do to reach our goals? So that's how I would ask the students to frame the first meeting is, Coach, what can I do to get better? What can I do to help the team? I think that's an important conversation to be had. After that meeting, if the parents still have follow-up questions, they should then reach out to the coach and try to come to an understanding of what's going on and what needs to be done to move forward. The next step then would be to talk to the athletic director if that meeting doesn't solve the issue. A lot of times I get phone calls or emails from parents, and the first question that I ask them is, have you talked to the coach? Unfortunately, sometimes the parents feel that they don't want to talk to the coach because they're afraid of the coach taking something out on the student. The problem with that thinking is that I'm going to have to reach out to the coach to solve any problems. So I will make sure that you talk to the coach first before we sit down. I think that that's a really important thing, and a lot of things are solved in that meeting with the coach. If anything were to get past me and things are not settled as the athletic director, you then would move on to the principal as the fourth step, and then the superintendent after that. We've had very few, if any, times where we've ever got to that point when following the chain of command. One of OHSAA's important initiatives is respect the game. The OHSAA's vision for positive sporting behavior is built on expectations. It calls on the school community, administrators, contest officials, coaches, students, parents, and fans to strive for positive sporting behavior in everything they do by teaching the values of ethics, integrity, equity, fairness, and respect. As a student athlete, parent, coach, spectators, etc., you must always remember to respect the game. I think that's a really important point from the OHSAA and something that I hope that we can be looked at as a community at Springboro, that we are always ones that are carrying ourselves with class and character no matter the situation of the game. Make sure that we're always representing ourselves as students, as positive Panthers, and that we're doing things the right way. Thank you for your time and viewing this video. If you have any questions, make sure to reach out to myself or anyone in the athletic department for clarification. Also, make sure that you go through that student handbook as it has many of these rules and expectations. Thank you and have a great day.